there, welcome back to Becky, Amio Horse Training. And I realized I have never properly shown you guys how I transition a horse from a snaffle into the Foreman Pelham bit. This is the super short Pelham bit. And so I wanted to show you today kind of what I go through with the horse when I'm making that transition, the first couple of rides. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is the traditional snaffle. I do not start horses in this bit. And if you've been watching my channel for any period of time, I have always ridden in the Boz snaffle, and you can see that on Boz's website. You can buy it directly from him on his website. And this is the bit that I learned in. This is the bit that I train with Boz in, and it's the bit that I've used for the last 25 years or so. It looks like it has a curved mouthpiece, but you connect to the corners of the mouth, and I have an entire video about this bit. Now, it's got big rings here, so I can't pull the bit through the corners of the mouth. We've all seen those horses that are being started or those horses that are running away, and somebody's pulling their head around and that bit's going right through their mouth. This bit prevents that from happening. Now, because I learned in this bit and I rode in it for so long on so many different horses, my hands are really good with this bit, and they're educated to how this bit feels and how it makes horses feel, no matter what breed, what pedigree, what age I'm riding, okay? And so it makes it really easy for me to transition into the Foreman super short. Now, I have also found, on a side note, I have also found that it is harder for me to transition horses into a curb bit or any sort of bit for that matter if they're started in the traditional snaffle. I can go from the Boz bit to the traditional snaffle to any other curb bit that's out there, or gag hack combo, whatever. But if I start a horse in the traditional snaffle, I really struggle going from the traditional snaffle to other bits. And probably could be because of my education, my early education with using the Boz snaffle, the way my hands work, and just my overall education with using the traditional snaffle. But I also think it could have something to do with how the traditional snaffle operates as well, but we'll get into that in a different video. So let's talk about the mouthpiece on the Boz bit. It looks like a curb bit, right? But because it hooks to the corners of the mouth, we are getting direct rein pressure, right? So look at how similar this mouthpiece is to the Foreman bit here. Now let me bring it up close to the camera here so you can really see. Very similar mouthpieces. That's what makes it so easy to transition between the two bits. I really believe it's because of that mouthpiece. So when we're starting the transition here, we're gonna start by putting this on the horse, and we're going to connect our reins to the big ring that's on the side. Very often, curb bits that are on the market don't have this big ring on the side here to connect your rein to, and that keeps this bit a snaffle, okay? It's when we connect down here that we give it leverage and we turn it into a true curb bit. I always use a chain curb strap. I've tried doing a leather curb strap, and it's like, just pull the Band-Aid off and go straight to the chain curb. Set it really loose. Barely make contact. We're allowing the horse to get used to the pressure, the change in the mouthpiece, the change in the way the bridle hangs on their head, and the different feel of this bit in their mouth, okay? So that's what I'm going to be showing you today, and I'm going to be showing you, this is his second ride in this bit, and I'll show you what I work on in those first couple of rides. Okay, let's take a look first at the adjustment on our chin strap. This is not doing anything at this point because we're still working on snaffle pressure. So we want our chain chin strap to be really loose. Next, we're going to adjust our martingale because we're still going to ride this horse with a martingale, and we're going to adjust it to the height of the shoulder blade like we've had it before. We would also go up to the jawline if he had his head up higher, and if he wasn't so tired and he had his head up in the air, we would adjust it to that jawline. Now, again, we're not trying to force the head down at all. This is just in case. Immediately when I get up there, I'm going to bend his head around just like I would in any other ride and make sure he's soft in the face and giving his head back and forth before I automatically ask him to walk off. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do once we walk off is practice our emergency stop. And why is that? Well, for A, we always need our emergency stop, right? We need to practice this. We need to get comfortable using it because there's always going to be a time when we need it. And for B, this is what Otis knows. Okay, we're not going to introduce anything new to him today besides that bit. Okay, we're not going to set this colt up for failure. We are going to practice all of the things that he already knows in the routine that he already knows them. That's all we're doing, and all we've done is change this mouthpiece. So, walk him out quietly, bend his head, emergency stop. And we have to do this at all 3 gaits if we can. Why do we need to do that? Well, because if we aren't going to get their head bent around at a standstill, we're sure as heck not going to get it at a walk, let alone a trot, or at a lope, or if a possible runaway situation, okay? So although this may seem really, really boring, it's really setting up your foundation to give this horse a really good experience transitioning into the other bit, because we want it to be as seamless as possible. We want him to transition into this and ride just like he rode in his other piece of equipment. Okay, and there's nothing worse than surprising a horse with a new piece of equipment or a new movement that we do up on their back. So the only addition to this ride is just that bit. That's it. Now, I'll give you a little bit of background on Otis. He's been here for a couple of months. If you haven't seen a couple of his other videos, he came back for training to be started, and he is at the very tail end of his training. He is at the end of his start. His owner will be coming this particular weekend to come pick him up. This is one of my last rides on him before he goes home, and this colt is tired. He is done. He's ready to go home, ready to go do something else, go get rode by his owner, take a little time off, kind of get out of the intensity of regular training. And so it's super important that we recognize this as trainers and colt starters. People have asked me plenty of times, how do you know when they're ready? This is how you know this colt is super, super tired. And he's not a big arena kind of horse anyway, right? I mean, obviously, he's not a little cutter reining bred horse that's going to go out here and lope 40 circles for me. And we're just going to do some really basic circles with him. Make sure he's following his nose, holding his frame together. Pivo loses me there briefly. But really just making sure that he holds himself together, following his face. If we're going to have a wreck, let's have it in the arena where the ground is at least consistent before we go ride him out, because he's going to need to be rode out in this as well. And, kind of gone through a pasture that he already knows, that he's already comfortable in, that he feels confident in. We're not just going to go take him to the mountains, right? In a new piece of equipment. Too many times I see people decide to change the bit at a barrel race and think that's going to be the magic fix, and they've never ridden it before, or somebody hands it to them at the trailer and go, here, try this, and it's just ridiculous. Like, you're so setting your horse up for failure. Not only that, but you've paid a fortune in entry fees to be there and gas money to be there. I just couldn't imagine making a change like that right before making a run. So I couldn't imagine making a change on a bit on a colt and then just throwing them to the wolves and going out to a pasture, or, let's say hauling them to town for the first time and changing their bit on them. It just wouldn't be fair. Wouldn't be fair to them. Wouldn't be fair to us. We'd be setting ourselves up for a wreck. So really basic again. We're going to ask him to do all of the things both directions. So circles to the left, circles to the right. We're going to ask him for the roll the rollaways, the inside rolls out the opposite lead, the 360s, all the stuff that he's been working on already. So let's say you have a horse that has a lot more forward motion, a lot more forward movement, is a lot more ambitious in the arena than Otis is here. You can just do more of these, okay? You can do more circles. You can do more emergency stops, more rollaways, more 360s, okay? I'm just doing very, very few with Otis because, he's not a big arena horse. If I were to do this out in the pasture, it would go a lot better. He'd have more forward motion. I would have to spend less effort asking him and encouraging him to go forward. And if I start pushing on him too much, it's not going to be fun for him anymore. And that's something else that we need to recognize as trainers is the, mental emotional state of our horses. He is not going to be happy if I just keep pounding on him in here, and I'm not going to make this fun anymore. So I'm going to do very, very minimum in here with him compared to, say, a speed bred horse. If we take a look at Shooter, another colt that I've rode, and if you guys have been watching the channel, I've got a series all on Shooter. Shooter can take quite a bit of riding, and quite a bit of riding in the arena as well. And Otis is just not going to be going forward for me if I keep on working on that. Now, and that's something else. This is something that you can get done in the round pen. It's actually a lot more efficient in the round pen because you have the rail to really help hold yourself together and help hold the colt together. But if I go back to the round pen on Otis, I'm not going to be able to get him to go forward at all. Like, this is a big outside, big country riding kind of colt, and he needs wide open spaces to help encourage him to go forward. So I'm going to throw a bunch of 360s in here in a row and really, really help him. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for him to learn how to follow his nose, kind of stick his butt in the ground. We've got him stopping nice for us. We don't have to set him in the ground like he's going to rope a calf at the NFR, okay? We need him to stop. We need to cross over his front legs, get out of his own way, make a smaller circle with his butt than he is with his front end, and just follow his nose, okay? We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for improvement and him learning the process, okay? We can specialize later. The more rides that he gets in this bit, the more rides that he gets in this arena, the more age he gets on him, and as his body matures, all of that stuff is going to improve, okay? So don't pick at your horse. I'm not going to pick at him. Don't pick at your horse, especially he is this gangly, tall 2-year-old that has actually quite a bit of control over his body for his size and his age. But when this colt is 3-4 years old, he's going to be very, very different. And when 2-year-olds are in training, we're dealing with the growth, the work. We're trying to add feed. We're dealing with weather. And we get to a point there in their training where they'll hit another growth spurt. And then all of a sudden they can't do any of the maneuvers that we had been asking them to do. And Otis is right on the cusp of that. He's right on the very edge of that. He can still do these maneuvers, but he's so tired. He's about ready to hit that growth spurt, and then I'm going to lose all of that. So this is a perfect time for his owners to come and pick him up, ride him, take a lesson on him, and then take him home and just kind of enjoy him, and then he can come back next year. So the key to educating them to this bit is working this basic handle. Too many times we see people put on a new piece of equipment and then they just go out and work in a straight line or go lope some circles. And in this case, we're working him through the paces. We're working him through that basic handle. He's having to work on stop, back up, roll away, inside roll out the opposite lead, 360s, turn on the forehand, side pass. We're putting all of these parts together, and these are all things that his body has the muscle memory and has had the education already, and now we're putting it in with a new piece of equipment. Because with this bit, eventually we're going to be able to rock him back on his hind end a little bit more, ask for a little more collection, and really elevate that front end to come around quite a bit faster. That's ultimately what we're working towards. So after this last roll away, I'm going to go ahead and let him play game over, walk it out a little bit, and then we're going to start to work on lope. Now, we're only going to do a tiny bit of loping today. The trot is really the explaining gait for me, so we did quite a bit more of that. And again, we're running out of horse here, so we don't want to overdo it with him and make this an unhappy experience for him. I'm going to go ahead and roll him away and put him into a lope from there. So even though he doesn't take a lope right away out of this roll away, we are preparing him as if he will. Eventually, we are going to have him taking the lope out of these rollaways once he matures a little bit more. Now, he's looking for stop. I mean, you take a deep breath inside, this guy's going to start to stop on us. As we come around this corner, he breaks down to a trot. So I go ahead and set him up for the stop. And as I back him up and start the rollaway process, he really throws his head in the air and he's out of position. And this is an advertisement for a martingale right here. So let's slow-mo it down and see exactly what happens here and what causes this. Part of it, it's getting used to the new piece of equipment. The other part of it is he's not set up properly. I ask him to back up and he's pretty stiff in the hind end. He's not rounding his back, and his first answer is to throw his head in the air. All I'm going to do is stay consistent with those hands, throttle him back with my left rein, and guide with my right rein. Completely ignore the head toss altogether. When their feet get right, the head tossing, the mouth moving, all of that stuff goes away. So we just need to be cognizant of that. Ignore the stuff that's bad, pay attention to the stuff that's good, and stay consistent, okay? If we pick at that, we're going to have a fight on our hands, and we're going to ruin all of the good stuff that we've already done with this bit already working today. Again, we've got a head toss. All I'm going to do is just pull straight back. He's really resistant and stiff in his backup this whole entire ride. This could have been improved earlier on, and I'll have a note to self. Practice this a little bit more in the snaffle, either on him or on the next one that I work on. And I just need to get him softer, give him more time before I put him into the roll, because his first answer is going to be to throw that head up in the air, all right? But stay consistent. Don't get in a fight with him. Don't get into a tug war match. Don't turn it into one of those situations where you're seesawing the hell out of their face and yelling back, 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 back. That's just dumb. So I contemplating editing out this next section, but I think you guys need to see how much encouraging it takes to keep these colts going in the arena. He wants to keep breaking down to a trot on me, and I get a little bit too aggressive here on him, and he gets mad and he contemplates kicking out, and I have to break him down, ask him to move out again. We're getting the wrong lead. He's just trying to give me answers at this point. He's like, here, just throw a bunch of answers at the wall and see what sticks until we finally get it. Just don't push. Just encourage and go with them once they get it. Don't pick at them. That's the best piece of advice I could give you in this scenario, is just don't pick at them. Keep encouraging, and they will give you everything they got when it comes down to it. I'm looking for a really quality, nice loping lap around the arena, and I'm getting really close to quitting on him for the day. He gives me a really super, super nice stop here. This colt, like I said, when you sigh, he will get his butt in the ground when you're ready. And I give him a break. Now, in the normal form and basic handle, you would put him into a roll right away. This guy, his feet aren't going to move that fast. And we want to slow everything down because we're working in a new piece of equipment, right? We don't get the head toss here, which means he's starting to understand it. We also get more correct body position as we make that roll. He's not kicking his hip out in that roll there. I walk him out of it, and I pick up the new lead going to the right. I'm looking for one quality lap here before I ask him to stop going this direction. So going back the new direction, I'm going to work towards making a really nice stop and roll and then call it a day with that. But first, when he starts to make this roll, he has a beautiful stop, and I put him directly into a backup, and so I'm asking him to keep his feet moving, but now in the opposite direction. And immediately what he wants to do is get out of position, and we'll see that right away. He wants to cock his hip over to make a turn on his belly button, basically. And so what I do is I correct him this time. I take his head slightly to the right, and I kick that hip back over and get him straight. So now I'm starting to make him a little bit more responsible for his body position when he goes into these rolls. Now that I've seen that he's getting softer and understanding this piece of equipment. Let's watch it again in slow motion. We get this beautiful stop, and then I put him right into the backup, and no head tossing this time. He's starting to give his face, but he's cocking his body the opposite direction. There could be lots of reasons for this. Most likely because his body just isn't balanced enough yet is why he's bringing his hip to the inside. Another reason could be because he's already trying to anticipate the direction that we're going to go, and that's the beauty of the basic handle. I can put him in an inside roll out the opposite lead now, and he was expecting to do a roll away instead. So all I do is ask him for those feet to back up, correct him in the backup, and then I'm going to quit on him. And he stands there with a foot cocked. He's really relaxed. He's really happy. He's asking, okay, what are we going to do next? All right. And I'm going to put him in an inside roll and change directions with him. And from there, I'm just going to let him play game over and call it a day with that. So I hope this really helped you guys with transitioning your horses out of the snaffle into the Monty Foreman Pelham bit. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to leave me a comment and share this video.